Really pumped to be here. Totally different conference experience than I've ever had before. Most conferences you go to, hundreds of people, thousands of people, tons of newbies, tons of, I got a free ticket so I'm here, tons of, whatever, right? Really pumped that the ones I've talked to so far, and it's only about half of you, I'm going to hopefully spend some time with each of you in the next day and a half or so, are serious people, serious developers, serious app marketers, cool people who know what they're doing and know how much they don't know too, because we all, holy mother, everything's changing all the time. It's hard to know what the heck is going on. I'm going to talk a little bit about insights on the future of app marketing. And I was going to say, wow, I hope everybody's going to be awake after lunch, but thank you so much, Color Switch guys, I'm guessing by the shirts. You woke us up, and I appreciate it very much. It woke me up too, that's awesome. So who is this man? Jeff Bezos, awesome, excellent. Who here has read the Jeff Bezos Day One letter to shareholders? Who here's heard of the Day One? There we go, awesome, cool. So if you want a cheap MBA, here's a hint. Go get all of his letters to shareholders, there's one a year, and read them all. It'll cost you almost nothing except for some time, and you'll probably have a much better education than somebody who went and actually did an MBA. Hope there are no MBAs in the room when I just said that, but hopefully that's fine. So for 20 years, Jeff Bezos has been saying inside Amazon, and this is the focus of his letter, it's day one. For 20 years he's been saying that. It's day one for e-commerce. It's day one for m-commerce, mobile commerce. Day one for AI. It's day one for cloud technology and all that sort of stuff. He got a question recently. By that he means it's early stages. There's lots to come. It's all changing. He got a question recently, and the question was, Jeff, when is it day two? Better watch out here. I'm going to trip and fall, I'm sure of it, but at least it'd be funny on the outtakes. What is it going to look like on day two? When is it day two? And this was his answer. You can't read all of it. Day two is stasis, followed by irrelevance, excruciating, painful decline, followed by death, and that is why it is always day one. So his point is, it's always day one. There's always lots we can learn. There's a lot we can learn from Amazon. Sure, it's a massive $430 billion company. It's an enterprise company now. It also has 700 million mobile users. There's a lot we can learn from what they're doing. And there's a lot of lessons about not going to day two, as I bring up Pokemon Go. There's a lot of lessons we can learn from the rise and the fall of Pokemon Go. And I realize it's not completely fallen, and there's things that are going to happen in the future, and they're releasing new product all the time and everything like that. But there's a lot we can learn because it's not where it was and because of where it got to. The first one, perhaps, is the speed of the mobile ecosystem. There is no other ecosystem that has ever been created on the planet in the history of the human race that matches the speed of what we've done on the App Store and Google Play. Unbelievable, incredible how quickly it rose. There was one month in 2016 when Pokemon Go had more usage per day in terms of time than Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat and Tinder combined. Combined. That's mind-blowing and amazing. The second lesson is that it's very disruptive. The ecosystem is very disruptive, and you can be on top one day and you're down low the next day. And today, Pokemon Go, sure, it's around, it's still making money, it's still got users, but it's nowhere near what it could have been. Nowhere near what it maybe should have been if they had been ready to release more product, if they had a product that could work when it was a rainy day and you didn't want to walk outside, if they had been ready to release maybe gyms that you could teleport into and fight even though you were in Miami and the one you wanted to fight in was in New York or something like that, right? Maybe the biggest lesson, though, is that it's really, really hard to get back to day one when you're on day two. Really, really challenging. There's not a lot of examples of companies that have done that. Apple's probably done that. Apple probably went to day 2. They probably came back to day 1. Some of us might argue that they're in day 2 again. We're seeing a cycle there. That's possible. Microsoft is probably going back to day 1 as well, and that's quite interesting and amazing, right? So, but we like to think that we're at the forefront of change, that we're at the forefront of technology. We understand what's going on, we see what's going on, and we are in a lot of cases. But in every wave of technology, it's interesting how much the next wave just crashes right over top of that one, and the leaders of one wave get swallowed up by the next one. So in the spirit of day 1, I want to share just some of the things that I'm seeing recently in my research. So I'm going to talk about marketing is the new ASO. We're going to talk about ratings are table stakes. We're going to talk about app install fraud and ad fraud. I'm going to give you actual numbers from actual marketing campaigns, and a lot of them. We're going to talk about enterprise and how enterprise is starting to catch up. And we're going to talk about how everything is going to change all over again. So this is me, John Koetsier, currently with Tune as a mobile economist, mostly with some other companies as well. I write for Forbes, Business Insider, TechCrunch a little bit, VentureBeat still a little bit as well. Most of my writing is for Forbes right now, and I built VentureBeat's research division, which is mostly focused on MarTech and mobile. So, yeah, Tune. The key fact that you need to take away from this one is that our tech is in 3.5 billion devices. My job at Tune is to understand some of that stuff, some of the data coming in from those devices, and then share it. And that's what I'm doing right here. So marketing is the new ASO. Interesting. Everybody who's in apps and marketing realizes that search is critical. Apple has said that search precedes about 65% of app downloads, app installs. Microsoft, Google has said that quality app installs, 83% of them are as a result of a search. So search is absolutely critical. What are the search terms that are being used? Interestingly, just ran a research study, haven't even published all the things we found there. 100% of the top 10 keywords by volume in the iOS App Store are branded. 90% of the top 50, 86% of the top 100. This could be challenging if you're not a brand. In addition, most of those keywords are owned by large companies and large startups. 100% of the top 10 and top 25, 86% or 88% of the top 50 as well. Again, that's a problem if you're not big, right? It's kind of interesting to actually get the 88% on the top 50. I had to take some companies out, and it's a startup, sure, but it has $70 million in VC, and it has about a $400 billion market cap. So many of those top keywords are owned by large companies and huge startups. Two implications of that. One, you're going to have to pay more. Because search is challenging, and so ASO is challenging, you're going to have to buy more ads and buy more users that way. Second thing is that App Store optimization, app marketing used to be such a niche. And unlike a lot of other things that go on in marketing, such a core set of techniques, capabilities, insights, and understandings that you could use to grow apps. That's still true in a lot of ways, but it's also true that you've got to go outside of that scope and more into the areas of traditional marketing, PR, social, search. I heard one person talking in his 3 minutes here, he's really good at SEO, and they're getting a lot of organic installs from that. Absolutely. Influencer marketing is huge, and the Color Switch guys know all about that, and I recently wrote about that on Forbes, actually, talking with Zab, I believe it is. Really interesting. So there's a lot more that app marketers have to do, know, and become aware of in order to get their apps where they want them to be. Okay, second thing, ratings are now table stakes. Very interesting. If you look at the top Android apps, I'm talking the top 240 apps in each category, they average 4.16 stars, they have a variance of 0.3. What that means is that, sure, if you don't have great ratings, you're not getting into top apps. But once you're in top apps, those great ratings aren't a differentiator anymore. Now you're going to have to differentiate on a lot of other things. iOS, we see the same story. 3.81 stars is the average of the top 150 apps per category on iOS in the App Store. Variance of 0.6. Really, really, really tight. Are all those apps just so freaking awesome? Absolutely not. They're gaming the App Store, they're gaming Google Play, and most of you know exactly how that's working, right? They're asking the right user at the right time, are you interested in reviewing us? And those users are directing to give them a review and a rating. And that's how they're getting 4- and 5-star reviews. I believe it was, I didn't have the number here, I believe it was 86% of all ratings on Google Play right now are 4 or 5 stars. That's not normal. That's not natural. That didn't happen by accident. That's because people are gaming who they're sending to review and rate their app. If you're not playing that game, you're going to lose out. So a couple implications there. Yeah, you still need good ratings because you want to be in the top apps. You want to be the top 240 or the top 150 or the top 100, top 50 if you can be, obviously, and higher. But they're not differentiating you, at least from the top apps. Obviously, they're differentiating you from bottom feeder apps. That's not who you want to be. We've got successful people here. You want to be at the top 10, the top 50 or something like that. So you're going to need some other things to do that. And can't go into all of those today, unfortunately, but hit me up a little later if you want. Third thing I wanted to look at, ad fraud is absolutely massive. So kind of bad news, right? ASO is having huge issues right now, right? We saw the branded issue that we just talked about. We saw the ratings issue we just talked about. And the bad news is that ad fraud, when you're going to try and actually acquire users through paid user acquisition, is also pretty screwed. So I'm studying 702 ad networks right now, and I have significant data on 455 of those. That's 25 billion clicks over the last 3 months. 25 billion clicks over the last 3 months, and we've analyzed those for characteristics of fraud. These are the worst 34 networks in that sample size. 5% of them are 100% fraud. 100% fraud. Those installs are coming way too quick. Those installs don't follow a natural curve. Those installs are from outside the geographical range. Those installs are from known data centers, quote unquote data centers. Those are from known bots, other things like that. And 34 of those are over 50% ad fraud. Unbelievable. This is the average ad fraud percentage across all ad networks. I'm basing that on a sample size of about 702 ad networks, and we're finding 15% fraud. 15% of the clicks are just not real, not actually true. And in fact, almost a fifth, over a fifth, almost a quarter of ad networks have greater than 20% fraud. So this is pretty bad news. This includes some pretty well-known, some pretty respected ad networks. Some of the partners that we work with, and we work with Uber, we work with Twitter, we work with Amazon, we work with Supercell, we work with many of the top companies. Some of the partners that we talk to are quite convinced that, you know, a third of their installs are fraudulent and coming from things like this. And they go to their ad partners and they say, hey, look, they show them the data. We have the data, we give them the data, they show the data. And the ad partners don't even argue, don't even fight back. They just cut a check, or they issue a refund, or they say, hey, we'll replace it with others. That's interesting. That's really interesting, because they know there's an issue and they're accepting that issue. The rebrokering that's going on, so many different pieces of traffic that's coming into what any individual ad network is bringing you, there's guaranteed to be some fraud there. So 3 implications of that. One is you're obviously paying for a lot of fraudulent installs, right? Secondly, pretty obviously, you need a solution that screens out fraud. You can do that, quote unquote, manually. You can do that yourself, obviously, by looking at back-end metrics, right? You're not looking at the front-loaded metrics of acquisition, new users, but you're looking at usage. You're looking at milestones in your app and other things like that. That takes time. There's a longer feedback cycle there, and it takes work. You want to have a solution that's automatically looking for that, flagging it when it sees it, and showing you, if let's say you're using 10 providers, let's say you're using 100 providers, ad partners, it's showing you a graph of what those installs look like. And do those installs look like does that look like a natural normal curve? Does it not? Where are those installs coming from? What's happening? You need to be able to do that at scale quickly. And finally, as I just mentioned, front-end metrics mean nothing. And yet, I still write quite frequently. I still write for Forbes, almost daily, actually. And almost every press release I get from somebody mobile, we have 100 million downloads, we have 50 million downloads, or something like that. And most app developers, and you know this yourself, it means almost zero. It's nice. It's a vanity metric. What matters is people who are actually doing things, value creating users. Everybody here knows that. You're not making any money if people aren't engaged in what's going on. Front-end metrics doesn't matter, don't matter. Fourth, enterprise is catching up. This is an interesting one because it's been really nice for app developers to be the fast, smart, nimble ones, and you still are, by and large. But the big old companies aren't as stupid as they used to be. The fat, happy days are the end is in sight there. So for instance, we talked about Amazon earlier. Amazon has 440% more mobile customers than all of its competition combined. This is a $440 billion company, as I mentioned earlier. It's not a startup anymore, even if it still barely makes any money. Jeff Bezos very carefully plays with R&D spend and other things like that to not make too much money there. Still doesn't turn a profit all that much, although it has last year a little bit more, but it's still day one, right? Still day one. So it's not just Amazon, though, and it's not just the rest of Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, and others like that. This is ExxonMobil. ExxonMobil has 450,000 mobile users. This is Caterpillar. Caterpillar has 355,000 mobile users. That's an app that people are using to service their machine, an app that they're using to order parts or service, log what's going on with their machine. And you can bet that there's going to be an augmented reality version of that that's going to help them diagnose and repair their machines over time as well, right? So what we're actually finding out is that enterprise companies and big brands that are doing well at mobile do well financially, up to 15% or better in stock market valuation. So I just finished a major project that I call Unicorn Dinosaurs. Unicorns for high-value startups, dinosaurs for big, fat, old companies, where they come together. And I took all of the about 13,000 apps for all the Fortune 1000 companies and all their 2,800 named subsidiaries, grabbed what those apps had done, about 95 billion installs, and about 4.5 billion ratings and reviews, crunched all that data with their financials and how they're doing on the stock market. First study of its kind ever, I believe. It's coming out in full on May 9, but this is one of the findings from that study. The dinosaurs are figuring it out. They're starting to understand how it works. They want to have a one-to-one relationship with their customers, and they're coming on board here. So there's a couple implications of those things. One, you can't count anymore on being the smartest. Sure, you're going to be more nimble than a large corporation, but money counts too. And they are smartening up. Two, competition for attention is increasing, right? Competition for attention, competition for ad space, competition for number of icons that fit on a phone, competition for room in somebody's head, all that stuff. So, challenging times, challenging times. That said, everything is changing all over again, and shockingly, smaller, more nimble partners, more nimble people like you are well suited to adapt to that. So there's a couple things that are changing that I want to look at, and this is the fifth kind of area, focus of my talk today. One, we're seeing massive increased investment in bots. Two, we're seeing ongoing and massive increases in investment in AI. And where that is relevant, I think, is assistants, like a Siri, Cortana, Bixby, if you want to add Bixby in there, and potentially something from a Watson or something like that. There's a few other entrants in that game. Alexa, obviously. right? We have this quote from Satya Nadella. Now, Satya Nadella is a very, very smart man. I think he's reviving Microsoft. This is the stupidest quote he ever issued. This is the stupidest thing he ever said. Bots are not the new apps, and everybody who understands what bots are and what they do, and understands what apps are and what they do, knows that. But it doesn't negate the fact that bots are effective for some things. It's heavy. It's expensive in terms of time and effort. It's a lot of friction for somebody to download an app to make an appointment or to buy a product. There are some things that a bot in Messenger, in SMS, on the web can do faster, better, more lightweight. So there's some eating at the app ecosystem from that. More interesting, perhaps, who recognizes this, by the way? Thank you. Is assistants. And we have to think about where assistants are going to be in 2 or 3 years, right? We know that most digital activity is moving to mobile. About 68%, 70% of Americans' digital time is here, right? And we know that most of the time here is in an app, on an app, 90%, somewhere around there. Of course, a little caveat to that, a lot of app time is actually mobile web time. You're on Facebook, you follow a link to an article, you follow a link and there's a video, different things like that. But most of the time is in apps. But what about when you can ask Alexa to do things that you might need 5 or 6 apps for today? So I want Alexa, plan a trip for me. I want to go to Chicago. I want to see the Cubs. I want to eat out at Morton's. I'll need a room for a couple nights, and I want a flight that leaves Friday afternoon after 3 p.m. That's coming. That is 100% coming. And that is a big frickin' deal. Today, if you want to do that on mobile, you're going to be in 4 or 5 apps. You've got a lot of scrolling around, figuring out, and where you're going to sort this data, where you're going to keep. It's hard. It's challenging, right? But where are you if you're Hotels Tonight, or if you're TripAdvisor or whatever, in a world where somebody asks Siri to plan their vacation? Or in a world where somebody says, Siri, what's the, and I could start it here, but Siri, what's the best washing machine to buy, right? It comes back with something that fits my size because I've taken a picture and it knows the shape and everything, and fits my requirements. That is going to be a revolution in how people connect with products and with sellers of those products, manufacturers of those products. So we've got to think about that, and that is going to change the game as well. And this is all in context of something that is happening at the same time, where actual growth of the app ecosystem is significantly slowing. Now, I want to put some, add a grain of salt here. We're seeing that app growth in the US is down 38% since the boom in 2014. The grain of salt is that this is data from Adobe. So Adobe sees quite a few things, but their focus is more towards brand and to big enterprise. So it's not necessarily true for the entire app ecosystem, although they try to make it fit and to make it match. But we're clearly not in the gold rush anymore. We're clearly not in the age where, holy shit, I can put apps on my smartphone. Which ones can I download? Let's get them all, you know, collect them all, or something like that. We're in an age where, you know, I've pretty much got the apps that I need. If you've got a great game, I might take a look, but I've got 5 or 6 casual games that I pop into, and I've got 30 seconds or 5 minutes or whatever, right? So is mobile user acquisition hard? Yeah, it's frickin' hard, and it's harder than it used to be. And that might continue, right? So you add it all up, and we've got bots, and we've got AI and assistants, we've got app install velocity slowing. You know, we've got the world changing again. Games might be a little different, right? This is the gaming platform of the future, but how long will this be the platform, right? I mean, we're moving to glasses at some point, right? And that our world will be visible through that. And we saw that at F8, and somebody mentioned that, referenced that with me when we were having lunch as well, right? But for apps that do things, connect to people, you know, challenging times, interesting times. So it's day one. What are you going to do? Who's this guy?
Andy Grove.
Says the Andy Grove, founder and CEO of Intel. What's his you can't answer this. What's his most famous quote? Only the paranoid survive. Exactly. Awesome. So, thank you so much for your time. This is what I brought to you from some of our most recent research. Love to connect with you on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever it is. Thanks again.